going to talk to John, who's calling in from Oklahoma. John, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
It's Jean, actually.
Jean, I'm so sorry, Jean. Welcome to the show.
It's fine. Actually, I'd like to say I really enjoy your work, Dan, and Skeptic. So hello to both of you.
Hello.
Cool. Well, what do you want to talk to us about?
Well, you have a survey up on your video asking if you think Shakespeare actually wrote Shakespeare.
Yes, we did. Yes. I'm so glad you responded to our survey today, because we had a very spirited debate about who was more important to the culture, William Shakespeare or Stephenie Meyer. And I won't say which side I landed on that debate, but that's a whole other conversation. So yeah, you want to respond.
Yeah, I think it's, well, you're both skeptics, right?
Right.
Allegedly, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so we should probably approach it in a skeptical way.
Yeah, okay. I'm down for that so far. What do you got?
So what would make us question whether or not Shakespeare actually wrote Shakespeare?
Man, it's a good question. I don't know. So full stop, I think Shakespeare wrote everything that he wrote. I guess yeah, I don't know. Like, you'd have to look for what would the signs be? It's a good question.
Yeah.
Like if there are people who are saying, hey, I actually wrote this, like if there are statements about that, if there are reviews talking about people who are mentioning other people that were involved in productions. I don't know. Like you can also talk about Shakespeare, the man himself. I think John was saying that you actually got to visit Shakespeare's house.
Yeah, so I've been to his house, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he was a real person. There are crosses everywhere. Does that mean that? I mean, we could get into so many different things. But I don't know what would convince me that Shakespeare was one person or multiple people, but I'm of the stance that it doesn't really affect me. So if you've got some kind of evidence that would suggest that Shakespeare was multiple people, present it to me and see if that convinces me. I think that's the same with anything when it comes to skepticism. If you've got a positive position, then present that stuff and let's see if it convinces.
Right. I think the status quo is that Shakespeare is real. So you have to have evidence towards against the status quo. I think that's fair to say, right?
Right.
It was only first questioned by a woman named Delia Bacon in the United States about 150 years after Shakespeare died.
Only 150?
No one during his time. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. No one during his life ever questioned it. His contemporaries constantly mention how brilliant he is and the plays he wrote. His biggest friend and competitor, Ben Jonson, knew at the time that he couldn't, because he published all his own plays, Ben Jonson. He was a publishing fiend. And during that time when he's stealing other people's work, he knew he couldn't steal Shakespeare's work. He had to publish it under Shakespeare's name.
Okay. So, I'm guessing Shakespeare has like a correspondence with people too, right? Like, there's got to be letters. I don't know, maybe a diary or something. You could probably point to that too, right? I mean, you obviously have studied this, so I'm sure you know.
I have a terminal degree in theater, yes, and my wife has a PhD.
Oh, hell yeah!
There we go.
What's up? We're getting the best calls tonight, y'all. I'm loving this. We got people who are making apps and people who are like, yeah, I got a fucking theater degree, and this survey question is fucking bullshit. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
My wife did an entire dissertation on how it's a pretty stupid argument.
Really? Okay, so this woman comes up with this argument, and that's it? Like, has there been any good counter evidence to this at all?
No, the story around her is pretty messed up. They ended up putting her in a mental institution, which shouldn't that shouldn't be a factor in whether or not her argument is right.
Okay,
you know what I mean? But she only first questioned it about 150 years after. And then what you have, I hate to be that guy, especially having taught at universities myself, but people with PhDs, they have to publish, right? And they have to publish something new. They have to publish something different. So there's been they find anybody who was writing at that time and argue, no, he probably wrote it. Even though half these guys are dead by the time Shakespeare's really writing, or some of them are way too young for Shakespeare's early plays. Like Marlowe is one of those guys that's thrown out a lot, but we know he died early in Shakespeare's career, and he's one of the few people we have a documented written record on his death. Right? But people come up with these conspiracy theories that, he faked his death, and it was off writing in France.
Yeah, and we're not talking about like Tupac or John Lennon. Like, we're talking about Shakespeare. So, like, I don't know. I feel like the stakes are different too. You know, like Tupac could still be there and like making music right now. Like, Shakespeare's not coming back either way. So don't know about that. But that's so interesting.
They did a forensic analysis on his works that show a clear particular style that no one else at the time is matching. Right? So
by the way, this analysis, sorry to interrupt you, but we were just talking about the letters of Paul. I just want to point out as well, when we're talking about the New Testament, half of the letters that are written in the New Testament are not actually from Paul. Like, about half. Like, this is the consensus of scholarship using these same techniques that you're talking about right now about the authenticity of William Shakespeare. So that's just a fun note. Now, Romans, the one that talks about homosexuality,
only
is supposed to be a legitimate letter. But yeah, only 7 out of 14 are supposed to be legit, which, you know, I don't know what that says about your book.
It's a bad record,
but it's not great. So, man, you're blowing my mind. I can't believe. Of course, it comes down to one person. When you always investigate like where these claims come from, it's always just like one dude that's like, "Hey, I don't think this is real, and I'm gonna write a book about it." And then people are like, "Hey, man, you gotta check this out." Right?
This is blowing my mind, because before we started this, I was pretty certain that you just made up like Shakespeare could have been. I didn't realize this was an actual thing.
Oh yeah. You thought I was being funny. No, people do believe that. For sure. Yeah.
There's like a dozen candidates that people float as possible people who wrote it, right? Like the Earl of Oxford and Francis Bacon and all these different other people. But the reality is, if we approach it skeptically, contemporaries wrote about Shakespeare.
Yeah.
He's actually known to have helped write scenes for other playwrights. Like, we can forensically analyze those scenes as well for other playwrights. And I mean, there are it's kind of a giant leap to argue Shakespeare didn't write anything when even during his time period, everybody knew about it. I mean, the Queen loved him. I mean, the Queen randomly loved an imaginary guy. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Right. Well, but people do love imaginary guys, apparently. So
yeah, there is that. I mean, there's also people that say that history between, like, basically the Bible and Charlemagne didn't actually happen either. You heard about this, where there's like an 800-year gap in time. So, you know, people will make arguments about history for pretty much anything. Like last week, we were talking about a PhD that also believed the Nephilim built the pyramids. So, you know, like, having a PhD doesn't always mean everything, I guess. I don't know.
Right.
But man, I'm so glad you called about this, because like, I always knew people like made that case, but I didn't know what the case was. Like, I didn't know what arguments they were using to come up with that. I assumed it was bullshit, but I just didn't know. And now you're just telling me it's just assertions, really. Like, nothing really hard.
Yeah, it's people trying to get their PhDs or be that special person that writes a different book. I hate to be that guy, but there is some of that in academia. And there's grabbing at straws for crazy theories.
Man, this show is really fun for me. We're talking.
I've
about
enjoyed
all the
this
good stuff. This is awesome. Thanks so much for calling and telling us the truth about William Shakespeare. You heard it. You heard it here, folks. All right, Shakespeare was real. I hope that wasn't too contentious for you guys, but that's the hard stance we're pulling here on Truth Wanted. We do think that Shakespeare was a real person,
and he was a short fella as well. When I went to his house, I'm a 6'2" fella. I know I'm not as tall as you, but his doorway was tiny. Really duck under there. So yeah,
I think they were all small back then, though.
Yeah, right? that's fair.
Kinda, I guess that's how the world works. But
hey, I felt comfortable in his house.
Oh, really?
Okay, there you go. Well, you hobbits can all go to your hobbit hole and live your best life. That's fine, you know. But giants like me, I'm fucking Gandalf, like ducking my head in there, just kind of figuring out how to work that out. But hey, thanks again so much for this call. That was a great call. I love the response. I love it when people respond to, for those of you who listen to just the audio form of the show, we do put a poll out at every live episode, just encouraging people to call in, but also to get people's thoughts. And today's was, do you think Shakespeare was real? And I just came up with that on a whim.
I honestly thought you were making it up. I really did. I had no idea this was a thing.
John, you're going to have such a good time in America, dude. You're going to learn about all the fun things people believe.